I did ask Chris Kohler to be on the call. He's our network engineer, and especially since we're talking about the topic of network, and I thought he could kind of like be a BS detector for me. So if I'm saying anything that's not quite right, he's here to kind of put me back in my place. So thank you, Chris, for being here on the call. I really appreciate it. Looking at this picture, and Tony kind of put me over how do we incorporate AI into training and development. And this picture is a great example of AI. I wasn't going to go into a live classroom and snap a photo of the ClearTouch not working. And so I had asked AI to do that for me. And I was like, I think the first problem she has is her board is floating in the middle of the classroom. That just doesn't look quite right. Maybe it should be against the wall and connected to a data port. I don't know. It seemed like you got the rest of it right. But as we encounter network-related tickets, and I know that happens, mostly you're probably seeing software tickets, hardware tickets, sometimes network tickets pop up. I know a majority, it's like an 80-20, right? So 80% Chromebook tickets, and then the other 20% of the time you have this. But I feel like this is important to equip everyone and to get everyone on the same page when it comes to troubleshooting these types of tickets. And so here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to just give everyone kind of a baseline troubleshooting flow. And you should have this already. And this is a recommendation. This is a guide. I just want you guys to think about this. So when you approach the problem of a network-related ticket, we need to define the problem. Okay, what symptoms are you seeing? What exactly is happening? Is it a slow connection? Is there no connection? Is it disconnected? When did it start? Right? Who's affected? Is it multiple users or is it just one user? Is it multiple devices or is it just one device? And can you duplicate the problem? Is this something that maybe when you walk in the room, it magically starts working? But we may need to, dig a little bit deeper. And that's where we depend on you guys with being on site and your hands and eyes right there, just to do some baseline troubleshooting. And so when it comes to the device, we need to check the physical connections. Is it on FC Schools? It might be on FC Guest. Is it connected to the domain? Is it on the client range or is it maybe on a guest range? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to jump in. Have we tested with a different device? Have you checked a different port, maybe a different cable? That's a lot of the baseline troubleshooting, even like doing a simple restart. And then we're going to gather information. And this is where when I talked to Chris and I said, hey, what's the number one thing about site techs? He's like, check the port. We just want to get some information. And so that's where, we're going to depend on you guys to get the MAC address, possibly the host name of the machine or the IP address. All of that, all of the above, just any of the information, it's going to help tremendously going from, start of the ticket to resolve as quickly as possible. And I know that's going to help you guys to feel less stress about, okay, I'm going to get my ticket counts down. So you're going to be able to focus on the other stuff too. I know on top of tickets, we've got projects like trying to update machines to Windows 11 and all this. So we're just trying to, at the end of the day, I want to help you guys get caught up and to be able to approach problems in a systematic way that's going to help resolve issues a lot faster. And then finally, let's analyze what's happening. Let's test the results. Have we done a speed test? There's something called a WLAN report. We're going to go into that. Latency, ping, is it reaching the outside world? And there's some considerations about network tickets we have to think about. It's not only connection, but also you think about cybersecurity and CrowdStrike. And sometimes, is the session authenticated? And so we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But let's go ahead. I'm going to show you guys kind of the first line steps about just trying to figure out the port and the problem. And here's a couple ways to check the port that maybe you haven't thought about before.
I talked with the network team and they said probably the number one thing site tech should be doing is checking the port. It really helps to not waste time. All right, let me grab my laptop. And of course, you've got the dongle, plug it in. Oh yeah, that's from Universal Studios. If you ever get to go there, that's pretty fun. All right, let me plug in the dongle so I get my Ethernet connection. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip open my laptop. And I've signed in, magic of video. Head over to settings. And then once you're on settings, you're going to look for something called network and internet on the left, and then tap on Ethernet. And Ethernet's going to have that IPv4 address. All right. Now, you might not know this, but instead of carrying around a laptop, you could do it with your iPad. I know several site technicians have an iPad, so you take that same dongle and Ethernet connection. All you have to do is head over to Settings, and then once you're on Settings, go to Ethernet. You'll see Ethernet pop up once you plug it in, and then we're going to tap on the Belkin whatever, and then there's the IPv4 address right there. So you just get the details, put it in the ticket, and you're good to go.
All right, and ideally, you're going to do it from a laptop because you're not going to have command terminal, you're not going to be able to run the command prompt as an administrator to run some of the other tests. But if you're just needing some basic information about the port and you've got your iPad right there, that's just another tool that you can use. And so when it comes down to it, when you're looking at the port, there's two things. It's either the port or it might be the device. And so you're trying to determine, okay, where's the root issue? Where's the cause of it? So, we're going to connect a good known working device. And I know with the laptop, typically you'll need to have a dongle, so make sure you carry one of those around, and then check the port, and then locate the IPv4 address. And we're going to talk about how to read those here in a moment. And then if the port's working and you have another device that's working, and maybe it's the device that's failing, that's where you may want to look at running some updates, or it's possible it might be contained. And so there are times where that's where cybersecurity comes into play, and the device itself is contained and it's not able to reach the outside world. And that's where you can ping Google, like 8.8.8.8 and see, okay, is it reaching the outside world or not? And then that's a really good test. That's a good test to see that. Or if the port fails, then we're going to need to troubleshoot the network a little bit further. So I'm going to show you guys a few things that you could do on the machine to troubleshoot the network a little bit further and to gather some details. So let's take a look at this.
This is the brief on Forsyth County Schools website troubleshooting protocols. It's your essential, no-nonsense guide for figuring out exactly why a website is blocked and how to get it approved, striking that delicate balance between your classroom needs and serious cybersecurity. First, you got to do a quick background check. Is the site flagged on the Palo Alto security filter, or is it on the One Ed Tech Trusted Apps Registry? Think of it kind of like checking a public safety registry before assuming your own device is completely broken. Second, if the site actually checks out globally, well, the issue might just be your connection. Try testing the site on a cellular network versus your Wi-Fi. See, the district uses really strict rules, keeping things like social media restricted to staff. And here's the real kicker. If your laptop goes to sleep or you close the lid, your session literally drops. You've got to log back in through ClassLink so the firewall recognizes your staff status again. So ask yourself, is the site actually blocked, or did the firewall just forget who you are? Finally, if a site you absolutely need for instruction is still blocked, it's time to escalate. Gather your device's unique digital fingerprints, that's your MAC and IP addresses, and forward those with the website straight to the cyber team. Just remember, not every request gets approved because the firewall updates daily to stop sneaky workarounds like tunneling. Think of the cyber team as a super strict nightclub bouncer. They're fighting off daily threats, so they need your exact ID and a legitimate reason to let a site through the door. So getting a site unblocked really just means verifying its safety, proving your active staff status, and giving the cyber team the exact data they need to keep the school's network totally locked down.
Okay, if that makes sense. So sometimes it's not just reaching all network connection in general. It might just be specific sites. And Facebook had come up a few times, and I noticed that if it doesn't see your profile as a staff profile, then you're not getting access to Facebook or social sites. A lot of times ETCs might post on behalf of the school, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or things like that. So they need access, and you have to create the session through ClassLink. You have to tell the firewall who you are and create that session. If the session expires, then you just have to simply sign back into ClassLink again. But here's some network commands right here that will help when identifying some problems. And then also you can take this information and put it into the ticket. So I'm going to show you guys how to do this. And this will be a tremendous help whenever forwarding a ticket to the network team.
Hey, Mike Simmons from Technology Department. We're going to look at network tickets. What do you do if you get a network ticket? First off, go to the search bar, type in CMD for command, run it as an administrator. Here you're going to type in your elevated account credentials, might be a checkout account, could be an SA account. Whatever we've got to do, we're going to pull up administrator command. Now, I'm going to show you ipconfig /all because that's going to give you a lot of information. And then let's get used to using the snipping tool. That's going to be Windows, Shift, and S. And I'm just going to maximize the screen, Windows, Shift, and S. Get to the very top. And then once you do Windows, Shift, and S, it's going to bring up a little snipping. And the point here is we've got to take a screenshot. That's the clearest method, really. If you try to take a picture with your phone, it might be a little bit blurry. But once you take the screenshot, go into the comments of the ticket, and then just hit Control and V to paste it, and there it is. It's going to be really easy to read, especially if you're trying to escalate this ticket due to network issues or network concerns. All right. Next thing we want to look at is, can the machine reach the outside world? And so an easy way to do that is we just want to do the good old ping command. And if you do 8.8.8.8, that's going to be google.com. And if you can reach google.com from the machine, you are in business. Packet sent, package received. All right. So now I want to show you guys something about WLAN report. And the command to run that is net sh space WLAN space show space WLAN report. And this is a very powerful report because this is going to really impress the network engineer. And we're going to copy that path, and you put the path actually in a web browser, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So here's the WLAN report, and we just scroll down and you can see different information like computer name, the BIOS version. It'll also show the network adapters if they're up to date and what version drivers they're running. And then it's going to give an output script for ipconfig all, and it's just going to have a lot of details, a lot of information, success and failure counts. And this will be really good if you're having intermittent issues, if it's going in and out, or maybe it's not connecting during specific times of day. That's going to be a huge report. But how do you get the information in the ticket? Well, I'm glad you asked, because right here it's just a web page. All right, so what you want to do is we're going to come back here to the path, and then I'm going to pull up File Explorer. So you hit the little icon that's the File Explorer, and I just put the path underneath it. So here I see I've got to go to the C drive. Now, I already have my hidden files being shown, but if you go to View, Show, Hidden Items, let's say it's right there, and then I'm trying to find out, okay, after C drive I need program data. Well, I don't see program data. Where is that? That's hidden. Let's go to View, Show, and then Hidden Items. Voila. Okay, I've got program data. And then I'm going to go to Microsoft, Windows, and after Windows is WLAN report. Okay, inside of here there's a cabinet file. That's the moneymaker right there. Let's go to cabinet file, and I'm going to do right-click copy, and then Control V to paste, and here's the cab file. Here's what it looks like if you download it. So I'm just going to save it, and I'll open up the file location here, and there's the WLAN report. It's got even the event log and different things like that. There I could pull up the HTML document, and then if you're sending it in the ticket, then on the receiving end, if they extract it, and it's going to go to my desktop. Let's see, I'll pull over to desktop, double click that. Now I can see the WLAN report. So now anyone who pulls up that cabinet file, they can see the same WLAN report, and it'll make it nice and easy for the network team to read. Well, I thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.
All right, and that's just an overview of some command files that would help as you're testing out the machine and gathering more data. So it's more than just, oh, here's an IP address and here's a MAC address, but you're giving more information. And the more information you give, really, the better. And that's going to speed up your time of resolution. And so before we bump a ticket over to the network team, we want to make sure that we're presenting them with all the information that we can get while on site, while they're with the machine, with the user. We can ask the right questions, gather the right information, and that's going to give you the best results, really. And so this breakdown right here, I thought that this would help as we're trying to read IP addresses, IPv4 addresses. We don't use IPv6, but we use IPv4 here at Forsyth County Schools. So the prefix, our district prefix is 10, and then you have a site identifier. Like example, 10.48 would be for Alliance, AAI. And if you needed to get the breakdown of this even further, Thomas, he put in our Tech Tools folder the IP addressing and the color coding and all that stuff. So all the information, it's right there under the IP addressing file inside of Tech Tools. And if you don't have access or you don't see Tech Tools, get with me later. I'll be happy to help you out. And then that third octet, and if you've been in site tech support and you notice, remember when you had the teacher laptops and we're like, hey, check the third octet. That's what we were talking about. What device group is it in? Is it on the guest network or is it on the client? Because if you're trying to add scan docs and it's on the guest, it's not going to see it. It needs to be on the client. Or if you're trying to print, I know printing's a big deal, print deploy, it's got to be on the client network. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see the printers that are in the building, right? And so the device groups, the range from 0 to 7, see that right there, 0 to 7 is going to be your standard client, or it might be 0 to 9. And then 32 to 47, that's going to be your Chromebooks. And so if you're on the third octet, when you're on a Chromebook and you see anything that's in the range of 32 to 47, that's normal. That means you're on FCS Chromebooks and you're on the right network. And then we've got printers, they're locked down to 80. So they're on .80 for the third octet. That's what you want to see. Or if it's on the guest network, that's where you're seeing the 192 to the 223 range. Okay, and then I highlighted a site here. This is kind of a really helpful site because if you don't want to pull up the command prompt or you just want to quickly see, you can go to the site called help.forsythk12.org/what's-my-IP, and that'll show you some information too. A really helpful site, and I hope that this breakdown right here, it just helps you guys be able to read IP addresses a little bit better. And so when you're on site and you're working a network ticket and they're having issues with connectivity on the network, I think this would be good to refer to, and really just to help, just to put another tool in your tool belt as you're approaching those tickets. Okay, oh, and here's a screenshot on the left about the What's My IP. So just to kind of show you guys, I think, Sam, you had several tickets where you were throwing in some What's My IPs in the ticket. I was impressed. I was happy to see you're using that tool. And then here on the right, I've just got, this is what you look at with a data port. You have a wall jack, and that's where you plug into. So that's what, when you're in the classroom or you're in the office, that's what the user is plugging into to get their machine connected. But I wanted to give you guys a little insight into maybe what it looks like behind the scenes. And so let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick.
This is the brief on network data paths. Tracing a network's physical hierarchy is like mapping a building's nervous system. Every physical jump from the wall plug to the server room serves a precise purpose in organizing and routing your connection. First, the entry point. Data starts at the wall port, traveling through walls to a closet, punching down into a patch panel. Now, you might wonder, why not plug straight into the network switch? Well, the panel is a static switchboard, acting as a physical buffer. Bridging it to the switch with short cables actually protects those expensive switch ports from the wear and tear of moving heavy cords. Second, your data needs directions. Those short cables plug right into the network switch. See, while the panel is totally dumb, the switch is smart. It learns device MAC addresses to route your packets correctly. It's this switch that magically activates that dead wall port. Finally, we hit a limit, because copper cables max out at 100 meters. If servers are further away, data stops at an IDF, or intermediate distribution frame. Think of this closet like a local neighborhood post office. From there, it jumps onto high-speed fiber to the MDF, the main distribution frame, which is the regional sorting facility housing your internet gateway. Your data's journey is basically a highly organized relay race, starting at a wall port, buffered by a panel, directed by a switch, and sprinting to the main fiber hub. So next time you hear that satisfying click of an Ethernet cable, you'll know exactly the hidden path your data's taking.
You remember the first time you walked into an MDF or IDF and you saw all the cables and you're like, oh, holy smokes, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Hopefully with this training, this will just kind of help clear it up as to what's happening behind the scenes. And just to give you a little bit more insight as you're supporting your sites and to kind of, know what to look for. We do have teams, communication team and the low voltage team that will handle the network type of issues. But while you're there, if it's just a matter of just finding a simple patch cable, a 1-foot patch cable, and being able to plug in from the patch port to the switch, that should be pretty straightforward. And they're all laid out. I will say this, not every wall jack is labeled correctly, but most of them are. And there is a cable coloring scheme. And again, this is on the Tech Tools folder that Thomas had made. So green is for security cameras, yellow's for your access points, the purple's for your paging system, and then orange is for the UPS, the backup power. Now, the newer buildings and newer schools and building additions are going to have white for the clear touch panels. But otherwise, it's just going to be blue. Blue is kind of like the general purpose. Everything else is blue. Now, these other colors, they're locked down. You don't want to mess with those. You don't ever want to change those or move those around because those ports are configured specifically for those things. So you definitely don't want to get on the bad side with safety or the network team or the communication team or anyone. So don't move any of the green, yellows, oranges, purples. But the blue, I would say don't even move those unless you're directed to by the network team, because they can take a snapshot of the last 90 days and see, has that port been active? And if the port's not actively being used, then we can actually move it and we can use that switch port to be able to plug into the data port. So hopefully that helps, but this is kind of like the color scheme, the guideline for that. I just wanted to give you guys an overview. So if you ever find yourself in one of the wiring closets trying to figure out the connection, that's just kind of what we're looking for right there. Okay, and then I was going to wrap up with just talking quickly about esports. Now that IP ranges, I didn't have esports on there. Esports is kind of its own separate thing. And so if you look in the knowledge base and you just say, hey, tell me about esports, this is what it's going to give you. It's going to give you an overview. We got different times of day. We've got a specific IP configuration of the 172.21. And the nice thing about the knowledge base is down here at the bottom, you can copy and paste this information and put this right into a ticket if you needed to. And this kind of gives you a troubleshooting and escalating guide. And so if you're looking at connection issues, number one, you want to see, okay, is it on the right IP address? And that's one thing you can read from the machine itself. Or if you're having launch issues, we need to make sure that they're in the right grouping and rapid ID, because there is an esports group. And then we also need to check for firewall blocks, because sometimes they may have to authenticate their session through ClassLink. And so I'm going to talk about that here real quick. So esports on the high school setup, it's supposed to be hardwired. Now, I know that there are some sites that may have chosen not to pay for ports to hardwire. And so if Wi-Fi is a necessity, it's okay to use, but per guideline of gaming, it's supposed to be hardwired. Okay, just to let you know that. But versus the middle school side, they don't have that guideline. It's more of a club. It's not necessarily a sports competition as much as kind of a club on the middle school side. And then those networks, they don't go active until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. Now there is an exception on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The coaches, they can run game updates between the hours of 11 and 1 o'clock. And then there's a couple of things you have to keep in mind. Students are supposed to be rostered through Rapid ID. They can get with their esports coach or the ETC to make sure they're part of the right grouping. And then the support that we offer, it's the network team only handles the connectivity connections. Now, why is that? It's because these devices are site owned. They're owned by the school, by the site. They're not district owned machines. Okay. Now, middle school, they only have 6 gaming PCs per middle school. So there are some district owned all-in-ones that they use, but that's going to be on a separated network after that time of day as well. And their time is actually 4 p.m. It's a little bit later. So not 3, but 4. And I'm going to show you a little bit more of a breakdown here. So here's the setup with high school. So high school, you get the device, and we need to find out the MAC address of the device, and then they're going to get a physical connection, right? The hardwire connection. And then there's a database that the network team would use to add the MAC addresses to that list, right? So there's a pre-approved group, there's a NAC group where we put the physical MAC addresses in that esports group. And you have to be added to that for it to flip the switch, for it to flip the port to the correct IP range. So that way they're able to game. And that's basically, that's the simple setup. So that's all it is. We just need the MAC addresses. So while you're on site, if you see an esports ticket, it's a matter of, okay, we need to gather the MAC address. And we could ask the esports coach to gather the MAC addresses for us. That's no problem in doing that. But it's also good to get eyes on it. Does it have a physical connection? Are these connected properly? And sometimes they haven't told us that they've moved them around. So that could be a big problem too. But again, you're just doing some baseline basic troubleshooting before you get it up to the esports or network team to troubleshoot a little bit further. But it's about gathering that data, the information. And then just to kind of break it down a little bit further. And so high school, they're going to have things that are just owned by the school. And so our support goes as far as the network. And so if they're having any issues with the machine itself, it's on their responsibility to troubleshoot that. Whereas middle school, they're using FCS owned or county owned all-in-ones in addition to their 6 gaming PCs. And so there may be scenarios where you're troubleshooting a little bit about the all-in-ones, but don't touch the gaming PCs at all. Connection for high school, again, hardwired versus FCS guest on middle school. Network has its own dedicated esports VLAN, whereas middle school's on a different network. And then the trigger for the connection is either going to be, are they part of the MAC address group, or are they part of the Rapid ID ClassLink login? So that's really the bottom line. Now, I know we're bumping up past 3 o'clock, and I apologize for taking time, but do you guys have any questions when it comes to network or troubleshooting or anything new that we discussed that maybe you wanted to ask a few more questions about? Nope, we're good. All right, well, I thank you guys for jumping on the call. We did record it for anyone who missed it, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.